Like most of us landscape photographers, it's not often that I venture outside with my camera in harsh light. I have an obsession with the spectacular light shows provided by sunrise and sunset, or when the golden hour light just soaks the earth with gorgeous orange tones. It's in these moments that I continue to fall in love with landscape photography. However, in this week's video, I aim to inspire you to break the unwritten rules of landscape photography and explore the great outdoors whilst the sun is high above.
So hello guys and welcome back to the channel. As always, cheers for tuning in. Now, I've actually come out deliberately this week to shoot in the middle of the day, shoot some landscapes. And yeah, I suppose the purpose of the video is to try and encourage you guys, encourage other landscape photographers to do the same. So hopefully I can do that. Now, I'm at my local forest, which is called Riverhead, and I've never been here before. And I'm looking forward to it. And I actually think the forest is a really good place to come, you know, if you want to shoot landscape photography during the middle of the day. And if you compare the woodland to coastal photography, for example, you know, if you're out on the beach and there's really sort of harsh light, you've not really got any way of getting away from it, you know. Whereas if you're in the forest, that harsh light shines down into the trees and it becomes dappled light. So you can find some really nice contrasts. So yeah, that's all sort of in the challenge today, and it's all practice. Now, anyone that's watched any of my previous adventures, you will know that I struggle a little bit with woodland photography. I do enjoy it, I thoroughly enjoy it, or else I wouldn't be here in the forest. But yeah, I find it quite difficult. And the only reason is the sort of environment that you're in the forest. It's very messy and there's a hell of a lot going on, and I find it very difficult to sort of pick out a single subject that you want to photograph. But like I said, it's all in the challenge today, and hopefully I can return home with a couple of decent images. So, I can confirm to you guys exclusively that I am terrible at woodland photography. However, things are slowly improving, gradually, very gradually, and I think that is a good thing. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the challenge. Anyway, I was walking across the sort of main track through the forest, and I was feeling terribly uninspired. I wasn't finding anything compositionally. And I was peering into the main woodland, knowing fair well that that's where I needed to be to find a good composition. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. So, as I was wandering around, I realised that I had a real sort of negative feeling, negative emotions towards the landscape, and more specifically towards the pine trees. And that emotion was that every single tree is exactly the bloody same. So it was a nightmare, you know, trying to pick out one tree as a subject because everything else just looks the same. So what I've decided to do, or what I think I've done, is I've turned that emotion and made it into a positive, and I'm actually using it in this image. So I'm using the sort of sameness of the trees and the repetition to my advantage, I think. So what I've done is I've got this one beautiful, gorgeous pine tree here in the foreground, and this is actually going to be on the left-hand side of my frame. And then I've found these 6 or 7 more exactly the same looking pine trees that sort of disappear off into the distance. And the whole image is shifting from left to right. So the very sort of final pine tree that will be visible on the image, hopefully, will be on the right-hand side of the frame. So it all goes across left to right, and I think it looks fantastic. Now the settings are pretty important here, because it turns out my tripod is quite mandatory. So I've got it on ISO 100 and f4, but that's giving me a shutter speed of 1/10 of a second, which for this camera, really you need the tripod, to be honest. So I'm glad that I brought it with me. And yeah, that's pretty much the image compositionally. And I think it's going to evoke really nice emotions from the way it feels in this woodland. And all I'm going to wait for now is for the sun to come out from behind one of the clouds and cast some nice light here in the woodland. So, I really hope you guys like that image. It looked pretty decent on the back of the old camera, and I hope it gives you just a small inkling of proof that it might be worth your while to come out and shoot landscape photography in the middle of the day. So yeah, hopefully I've achieved something there. Now I just wanted to talk about sort of shooting in harsh light a little bit more in depth. Now, I still regard myself as a little bit of a beginner when it comes to landscape photography, and I'm still learning a lot, you know, when I'm out shooting, learning a lot about my camera even, and things like composition. And I think it's a great time of the day to come out and shoot if you're a beginner. Now, it's great, if you're shooting in the middle of the day, it's great to be away from the sort of stresses and the frenzy of sunrise and sunset photography. And you can focus a lot more on things like composition, and you can learn about your camera settings, and you can play around with filters without having to rush and, you know, capture the really nice light that the environment's giving you. And I think for me especially, I'm quite excitable when I'm out during sunset and sunrise. So it's great for me to come out during the middle of the day and just, you know, relax and chill out and think a lot more about things like composition. And the image I just got there, for example, I know for a fact I would not have found that composition if I was here trying to shoot the sunset or the sunrise. So yeah, that's one really big advantage. It's basically good to come out in the middle of the day and practice. Secondly, this is something that I can't really do today, but I do think it's worth mentioning to you guys. I think the middle of the day is a great time to come out and try out long exposure photography. Now, as long as you can get yourself a 10 stop or maybe even a 15 stop neutral density filter, it's a great time of the day to play about with long exposure photography. You know, if you can get to the ocean or maybe a lake and, you know, use it as foreground and capture some movement in the sky, you can get some fantastic images in the middle of the day where the light really isn't that necessary. It's not going to hinder your image in the slightest. And yeah, like I say, you can get creative and you can get home with some really, really nice images. So yeah, long exposure photography as well. Now, I need to get a move on because we are nearing the golden hour, and I don't want to be in the golden hour for today's video. So hopefully I can find one more image. Okay, so it has started raining, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little bit, nothing to worry about. But during one of the showers, it's actually died down a little bit now, just in saying that. During one of the showers, I ran in to the woodland just to get a little bit of shelter from the rainfall. I wasn't looking for any images or anything like that. And I stumbled across this little plant thing here, which I thought would be a fantastic subject for my second image. I have no idea what it is, but like I said, subject-wise, I think it's beautiful, and I love the different shades of green that it has, and it's a little bit wet, so it's, you know, it's reflecting the light, so it's creating a little bit of contrast for itself. And with reference to shooting in the middle of the day, I also wanted to talk about intimate landscape photography. So this little subject I think is going to help me do that. So yeah, I'm not 100% happy with the image or the composition just yet, but I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to get myself set up and try and talk you guys through it. So I am delighted that I have found this little green plant because it's a perfect example here of how you can use colour contrast to create some great images when you're shooting in the middle of the day like we are. Now, unlike when I shot my first image, we don't have any more sunlight shining through into the woodland, so it's very difficult to find a contrast. Now this subject has sort of almost created its own contrast because it's very bright, it's got light colours, beautiful light greens, it's almost got some whites on the leaves as well, whereas the rest of the woodland is very dark and, you know, quite dingy, so it creates a wonderful contrast. Now, I've framed this image up and I think it's going to work best as a square crop, and the only reason is because there's a lot of mess on the left and right hand side of the subject, so that's going to work great. Settings wise, ISO 100. I'm shooting at f3.8 because I'm going to focus on the little green plant, and then anything else in the background, which will just be the woodland, will be quite soft anyway, and I do want the viewer to be looking more at this this little green plant as a subject. And that is giving me an exposure time of 1/13 of a second. And 2-second timer there to eradicate any shake in the tripod, and that looks wonderful. Oh, honestly, I'm really happy with that image. I think another thing that I'll do, which is worth mentioning, is I will take this image into Photoshop and I'll do a little bit of dodging and burning just to bring up them highlights a little bit more and darken the shadows, which just adds to the contrast even more. But yeah, I think hopefully this image is going to be a wonderful example of how you can capture nice images in the middle of the day without even having sunlight. So I really hope you guys got something from today's video, and you know, it would mean so much to me if at least one person went out in the middle of the day because of this vlog and shot some photography. That would be awesome. But as always, thanks so much for watching, massively appreciate it, and if you guys could like and comment, that would mean a lot to me. It really helps get my videos noticed. And yeah, if you want to see any more, guys, do consider subscribing. You can hit subscribe at the end of this video, and I shall see you next week. Thanks again, and out.